have made it to the final night of messages on connection and belonging. I'm so happy that I thought about doing something like this because I really wanted to get people talking about our connections and how we connect to each other and how we don't connect to each other. So I'm excited about our topics tonight. We're going to go a little bit further on our faith and talking about our faith, but we're also going to talk about our family. And we're going to talk a bit more about in schools, connections in schools. So I'm really delighted to have these special guests tonight. I don't want you to sit back there and just look at us. I want you to talk to us. I want you to be engaged. I want you to share. And I want you to share those unique experiences and those perspectives. We don't have to agree on everything. We can learn from each other and we can do the things necessary to be great and connect in the way that we need to connect. First up, I want to talk to you about my first guest. My first guest is Dr. Lentoria Davis. She is full of energy, full of life, has so much, just amazing ideas when it comes to education, when it comes to connection and belonging. So I am delighted to have my friend and colleague, Dr. Lentoria Davis. Come on up here, Lentoria, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Come on.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Foremost, I am Dr. Latori Davis, currently principal at Texas Can Academy.
Okay.
I am a wife of 16 years. I am a mother to 5 children, one being a senior. I have a plethora of experience from elementary all the way to collegiate level, so I have been immersed in this work. I've taught everywhere from your most prestigious school districts to Stop 6 to Oak Cliff, some of our high school dropout recovery. So you name it, I got it.
That's pretty phenomenal. So you crossed the gamut of all of these, areas. So one of the things I want to know for you, Lentoria, talk to me a little bit about why connection and belonging is so important to you. Why is that so important to you? Connection and belonging.
It's very important to me, especially when you're talking about students or you're talking about people in general, whether it's parents, whether it is our faculty and staff. If they do not feel connected to something, they disconnect, and that disconnect can turn into a plethora of different things, from depression, anxiety to withdrawal, and that's that zone that we don't want anyone to be in. So
right.
It's, for me, that's the first step in anything that I do, is people feel comfortable, provide a safe space, provide a space where you can be vulnerable without penalty.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Tell me some of the ways in which you engage students, as a principal and even as a teacher, like I know you've taught before. Tell me ways that you find work best for you as far as engaging students.
Well, first, I like it to be authentic, right? I may have students that come in and don't necessarily know how to express themselves. So I'm very, very big on allowing students to have a voice. If you come to my office and it's not happening today, you are angry, I need for you to dump. However that looks. If it looks as if, I'm crying, I'm frustrated, I'm mad, hitting my table, let's just talk about it. I'm hurt. I'm angry. I don't judge.
Right.
I listen. Because in the midst of that dump, we can get through all the things.
And you can hear so much if you allow them to just dump. You really start to hear their frustrations and what they're really dealing with and their concerns. Dr. Lentoria, I want to come back to you, but I have one more person that I want to introduce tonight. That is Mr. E.J. Warren. He is a guest that I have met on social media. He gives us great tidbits, ideas, and I fell in love with his spirit and how he connects with his audience. He's very consistent and his messages really, really show up for the people. So I'm really excited that I was able to get him to be with us tonight. Bring my boy up here, EJ Warren.
Hey,
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Oh, Danny, you the one. It's not me.
Hey,
you the one.
We trying to do what we do, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's what we trying to do, our little part that we've been assigned on this earth to do. So,
yes,
EJ, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what you do, and as you go through that, tell me a little bit about why this topic is so important to you.
All right. Okay. As you mentioned, I'm EJ Warren, a native born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. I now reside in the Los Angeles County area, Pasadena to be exact. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have been in the mental health field for probably over the past decade. This subject, as far as connection and belonging, is so important because it deals with why a lot of clients or patients that I have, why they come in, because there may be some type of error as it pertains to connection, or some type of fracture as it pertains to belonging. And so this is very, very important. We deal with it all the time. A lot of time you'll notice that people, if they're diagnosed with some type of anxiety, or it might be depression, it has a lot to do a lot of times with that connection and belonging, that family of origin, that initial attachment. And it's just a profound thing. And I think it's great that you're doing this, brother, because this is something that is not limited to a race. It's not limited to a gender. It's not limited to a religious or socioeconomic status. I tell people all the time, depression, anxiety, as the result of connection and belonging, rears its head from Calabasas all the way to Compton and all points in between.
Come on. You said something earlier about attachments, and I really work with a lot of clients on the different attachment styles, talking about the secure attachment, the anxious attachment, the avoidant attachment person. A lot of times we learn these different ways of being and how we act and how we respond. And when we talk about attachments generally are formed in your early years.
Yes.
And so you learn how to deal with, distrust. You learn how to deal with trust. You learn how to deal with healthy relationships. You learn how to deal with unhealthy relationships. A lot of time in that, we learn how to self-soothe. And sometimes we can self-soothe in good ways, and sometimes we can self-soothe in not so good ways. Definitely. So you raised something about attachment. Who are we attaching to when we decide that we are going to become, or we're going to be, this particular person? Because sometimes what we've been attached to is not helpful to us any longer. And so we need to create our own secure attachment.
Yes.
Man, this is going to be a really good subject. I love when I get a therapist on the line, because we can go in. We can go in.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can go in.
Yes, sir. Well, EJ, what I want to do is bring you back a little bit. I'm going to bring my friend Latori Lentoria back up, and we're going to chat a little bit, a bit about schools and education and diversity. So I want to read this first question that I put together based on my book. It says, in the book, it provides practical ways to foster connection and celebrate diversity. Some are small, like saying hello to students in the hallway or sponsoring a club. Others require a bit more planning, like creating events, correctly pronouncing someone's name. That is a big one that I have noticed. Allowing students to have a sense of ownership in the classroom. Stop just telling these kids, like, you run the class. Now, I ain't gonna lie. I did that back in the day, and I used to be like, I don't care what y'all doing. This is my class. I run this up in here. But as you learn better, you do better. I remember my sister who passed away, Barbara Ann, I remember she mentioned to me, she said, when you first start out, don't you show no smile. That first semester, you got to be. But I was not being authentic. I was not being myself. And I found myself just kind of like, is this what I got to do the whole year? And so through that, I figured out my own methods. I figured out my own ways, but I had a very strict class, but I had to realize, like, it ain't all about me and what I want. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about this connection and belonging, do you feel like you've tried some of the things that I've mentioned, and you mentioned a little bit of this earlier, in your classroom or in your school? Did you try the approach to where you don't show any teeth or you don't smile the first semester when you start?
I can tell you, if anyone knows me, I'm going to have a smile on my face. I want everyone to feel comfortable around me. So in certain situations, I do as that authoritative figure. I do. But for the most part, I have adopted this philosophy in going into any type of school system. Is the kids, this is their school. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
Most teachers, most educators commute to student school. This is their neighborhood. They know the neighborhood like the back of their hand.
That's true.
We are guests in their house.
Oh, that's good. Say that again.
We are guests in their house.
Wow. So I do wonder, why do you think we try to own the classroom with our students versus making it collaborative in nature? Why do you think we do that?
I think it's control. I think if you feel like you are not in control of yourself, or this is the only place that you have control in, then that's how you rule that. Again, my style, I do want everyone to feel comfortable, but there's a balance in that.
Right.
I was extremely strict. They would call me Mrs. D or Mrs. Davis. It depends on what you want, Mrs. Davis.
Exactly.
I showed up and we're going to have a good time. We're going to rock and roll. We're going to understand these teaks. We're going to get down to, we're going to have different type of experiments going on in my classroom. You waver from the expectations where I can't get my job done, and I show up as Miss D.
Ooh, come on.
Same for administration. For my students, I show up, we're going to have a good time. We're going to get things rocking and rolling. Teachers the same. Hey, how are you doing? And I can tell you, and I've always adopted this too, because it goes back to control, right?
Yes.
Me stepping into this principal role, brand new on this campus, me and my assistant campus. Even when I was at my previous district, I had rule, and I did this back before I was in Midlothian. I adopted this philosophy. I never talk about instruction unless it's in the classroom.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Way I'm asking about you. I want to know about your family. Hey, how was the cookout? How was your mom? Them to know that I see you as a person.
Right.
I don't have all the control, because if I don't make enough deposits, I can't.
You said something earlier that really stuck out for me, and you said, like, the reason that we own the classroom, how we own it, is because we don't have a sense of control. I think about my students who act out, who don't do what they're supposed to do. It's also why they try to own the classroom in a certain kind of way, because they don't feel like they have any control at home. Absolutely. And they don't feel like they have control at school. When you deal with a student like that, Dr. Lentoria, how do we work to let them know that they don't have to necessarily act out to be a part, to be in control, to get that thing that they're missing? How can we help them belong without having to put on a show or be the class clown?
I think first and foremost is creating that space. Right? If a kid is acting out, I've always said this: behavior is an outward expression of an inward thing. Allow that space. Let them dump. But when you pull them in, have a real conversation as they're a person, not that they're underneath you or beneath you. Have a conversation. Hey, baby, let's talk about what's going on, because this isn't you. This is not
right.
And I use those words "we do" because you're a direct reflection of me as much as of you. So let's have a conversation. Okay.
Let's have that. Keep going.
Now you want to go into, now we've identified the root cause of that behavior. Well, I just want to, she's not letting me do X, Y, and Z. Let's talk about the why. understand the why, but they first want to know that you see them as a person and not jump to conclusion with a consequence. Consequence doesn't necessarily constitute change.
Exactly. It doesn't necessarily constitute change.
Mm-hmm.
I want to look at some of these things as we reflect on education. So it says, how could your school create a stronger connection between students and teachers? And I'm gonna go down the list a little bit. How do you help all students regardless of their differences? Do your students feel safe expressing their emotions? I kind of want to park there. You alluded to this earlier. I talk about this when I work with couples, and even when I work with families. A lot of them like to say, as a blanket statement, we just got poor communication. Our communication is so bad. No, nobody feels safe in this relationship here. You don't feel safe to say how you truly feel or to communicate your true feelings. You don't feel respected, and you're not exactly sure if you're not exactly sure if you're being heard. And I tell them sometimes we have that silent resentment.
Right.
We have that silent resentment when I feel like I'm not being seen and I'm not feeling heard. And what we have to do, Lentoria, is create these emotional bonds. I'd love you to share a little bit with us on that.
So for the first and foremost, we as educators need to drop ego.
Oh,
that's first and foremost. It's not a power struggle. I don't, and again, those who have worked with me know I'm the first one to say I don't power struggle with anyone. It's not about that.
Right, right.
And until we drop that, and I saw someone in the chat that asked, "How do I connect with parents, particularly parents that have an agenda that differs from yours?" There is no agenda except for getting the students to the next level, preparing them for life outside of us. And so, if a parent comes in and they are expressing, "I'm upset about X, Y, and Z," it has nothing to do with me as a person. So stop connecting the two.
Exactly.
In the same battle, just using different words and don't know how to connect the two.
Exactly. And I talked to Virginia about this a little bit last night, and we were talking about fitting in and being a parent who's experienced similar things that their kid has experienced in school. So sometimes they come up revved up, ready to go and ready to give it to us and tell us what we need to get off. And so how do you talk the parent down when they have gone to this place of elevation and they realize, like, hey, we're a community. We're connected. We want the same things that you want. How do you go about doing that, Dr. Lentoria?
If someone, and I've had this before, I've had several parents come in and their engine, and I call it emotionally hijacked. When they are emotionally hijacked and they just want to get it off. First and foremost, as an administrator, as a teacher, as an educator in that position, be quiet. Because most often they just want to be heard.
They want to be heard.
Do not try to think of what you're going to fix. This is not a battle of who's right. Like with my children, I want to be heard about my children. I feel a strong connection that my child isn't getting X, Y, and Z. So it is not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about how can we, thank you for expressing that.
Exactly.
I understand that. I understand where it's coming from. Again, take your ego out of the conversation. Take Laura out of the conversation and show up as Dr. Davis.
Come on. That means that you're that neutral party. You're listening with your ears open. And, you know, I had a similar incident the other week where I had assumed something with a client. I heard a little bit of the information and I assumed something and it offended him because of something that happened in his relationship with his wife. And so I heard, oh, you got angry all of a sudden. But anger can mean so many different things. You know, we talk about the iceberg. Up top is anger, but below it is worry.
Ooh.
Making me feel as though you don't care about me. You couldn't have called and shared this with me, or I didn't feel seen in that moment. And sometimes we don't realize those things are connected to things that you probably ain't never seen those things or had any experience with that, but because you're in the position and you've triggered something in them,
absolutely,
they can't get beyond the trigger. So I really start teaching people to pull back. And so what it reminded me as a therapist is sometimes I have to recognize that I can trigger people unintentionally by not hearing them thoroughly, not hearing the fullness of the story. So, you know what? As a therapist, I'm one of those people. I recognize that I still have growth areas to do and things that I can do. Lentoria, I do want to go on to this next part about faith.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna get into it today. So I may ruffle some feathers a little bit, but we're gonna really talk about this a little bit. We're gonna talk about this, and we are going to just enlighten some people.
Okay.
So, as a guest, how do you perceive the statement from the book? There's beauty in diversity of worship. But when our religious communities fail to acknowledge the diversity that exhibits among us, it can feel painful or exclusionary. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
I think and I'm just going to put it out there because I'm ready to go to church today too.
Come on.
I think we see it, in my experience, more so in a Black church. Because our experience is different. Right? It's different, but we have a lot of unspoken truths. We have a lot of unspoken trauma that we don't want to deal with, that we don't want to unearth. So anyone that disrupts what Big Mama and Paw taught us, it's scary and it's unlike what we are used to.
Exactly.
And diversity for us is, and I can tell you, let someone of a different culture pops up, we like, what they doing here?
Come on. They don't know. They get. It's the silent stuff. You said it though.
We can take it even if someone shows up and they are in a dark place. And I equate my professional life to my faith so much because a student can show up just like someone off the street can show up to church and you are not in Sunday best.
Right.
I'm coming seeking help.
Yes.
And I get judgment from the people that I'm seeking help from.
Come on now, you talking to us tonight.
You know what I mean? I'm showing in my authentic self, self. Just like I say to my staff, these parents are giving us the best that they have. So when someone on the outside is looking for direction, looking for faith, this is all that they have and they need help.
Yes. They need that help. They need the faith. They need the support. And they need to feel as though they belong. You know, part of that too is, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to hurt some people's feelings. But sometimes we get these positions in the church and we forget as from which we came, certain things as to how it felt. See, this can be integrated into our professional world as well. We forget how it feels to be in that low place, to be at the bottom of the barrel sometimes, and then somebody's asking more, and you getting the fruit of my labor,
right?
And so things like that, we really have to come in and start working on. Like, I need to be a doer as well if I'm in leadership.
I absolutely agree with you. And again, anytime for me, I show up, I'm authentic. I will never, ever forget where I came from.
Exactly.
I know for a fact how it feels to cry more than I laugh on a job. That was my first year in education. I know what it feels like to stay up all times of the night trying to meet deadlines for my principal.
Come on.
I know what it feels like to sit at home and contemplate, do I go to work or do I take care of my sick child? I know that feels like. And so for me, if you ever have to decide between your family, your job is not a decision. Don't come in, take care of your family.
You know, I think about that. When I lived in another state, I was very, very active in my church, and the leadership kind of taught that you needed to be active, and if you're in leadership, you're supposed to be at all of these meetings. When I looked at it, I was at church 4 days of the week. Choir rehearsal. We had what was that? We have midweek service, the business meeting service, all of the not business meeting, but business meetings, everybody who was in lead. And I'm just like, okay, but your house is falling apart.
Ooh, that's it.
I'm just saying, like, how can I say that I am a descendant or a connection of the Most High when I'm not seeing what my people need? They need rest.
And I'm glad you said that. That is so important especially when it comes down to Christianity. I've always said we have people that's dropping their religion and picking up relationship. I'm dropping my religion. I don't want to be.
You know, I was going to ask you to say it again.
You know, that's my motto, because with my God, I don't know who you pray to, but for my God,
come on, dog.
I want to be able to say, look, come on, Father, because you know, I'm not there yet. Exactly. And I don't want to be judged. And so oftentimes, again, in the church, I think some of our pastors need to take a step back, because sometimes your best leaders are not in the pulpit. Come on, somebody.
Come on.
In that back row. And everybody else. It's that person that when they feel the Spirit move, they get up and move to that person to make sure they are okay.
Exactly.
That phone call in that midnight hour.
Come on. I want to hit this question right here, because this is one I've been I'm like, whew, should I ask it? But I'm gonna ask it. So in my book, I talk about leadership and diversity in our church communities, and I asked this question: is there a reason that Black pastors rarely lead diverse congregations? And just kind of like, what are your thoughts on this? I want to give you my thought.
Okay.
I feel like our gifts, the things that we have, are, those are the things you see first, and that's what you want. But you hit on something. It doesn't feel good when there's no relationship. And then I look at leadership. If I'm good enough to do this, I should be able to do this as well. So, and I talk about in the book, it gets to a place to where it's not just coincidence. This is just continually something I see pretty regularly. Is there something wrong with African Americans or people of color in leadership of a diverse community?
I think that's twofold.
Oh, come on.
In my initial thought is absolutely not. Like you said, if I'm good enough to be the leader of a choir, and I'm gathering everyone's throats.
Yeah, gather them throats
all together, and we got choir robes. We in here Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning.
That's how we do it too.
Gathering them. And I can say, let's rise, and if I can do that, then I can lead. So my initial thought is absolutely not. But then if we're going deeper into this,
let's go deeper.
I feel like that it is going to be a problem, and that it is viewed as a taboo for Black pastors to a diverse church. I do think, I'm going to say it, Lord. Y'all don't
say it. We need truth up in here.
It is an ego thing of some pastors. I do feel like that there's a disconnect, because I want to connect to who I want to connect to.
Wow.
I don't want to do the work. We love throwing God around. Let's talk about love thrown around. This is the work of the Lord, and we doing X, Y, and Z for God, and all this. But I'm the first one to judge you if you don't have a suit on.
Ooh.
But you see other pastors that are able to lead. They don't care who you are. Show up. And we'll take the rest.
You're exactly right. And I think about like when I was a music director at a church, and we had the color system, we had the color codes that we would have. And I think about that now because I'm just like, okay, you buy what you want to buy, and so why can't you buy it for Sunday morning? I've grown a little bit more now. I know a little bit better now. How am I to require somebody to wear or buy something when all they're supposed to do is seek ye? Come into this house and give your gifts to him. So I had to learn some different things in understanding, like, you know, we can look cute up there and we can be going off, but what's in the heart? We got some ugly people dressed up in some nice clothes. Where are we going to get that servant's heart? That heart that says, I want to reach people. I want to connect with people. I want people to understand that you are valuable. Absolutely. You are wanted and you are in this place. So Jeff said, does the perception versus reality in the church carry over into the workplace? Oh, I'm going to let you get that one, Doctor.
Yes, Jeff. Yes. And that's why I keep saying in the beginning when we're talking about parents showing up and with a different agenda, absolutely your perception is your reality, but that doesn't make it true.
Yes, that doesn't make it true.
Over into the workplace, that's where you would have to take your personal self out of it, and it's business. It's business, just like in church. If we are talking about this is your role, first you own me. This is my gift. I'm gifting this to you. So you can say, oh, the church, let's talk about it. You're doing amazing things at the church. How are you doing amazing things when the only people show up are the people that show up on Sundays? Who are you bringing in?
You ministering tonight.
Maybe your reality, but sweetheart, it ain't true.
It ain't true. Ooh, there's a drive to grow the congregation, which a lot of leaders have tunnel vision for, which is why you hear work. But the true drive, hunger should be for spiritual growth. I ain't got nothing to add to that. Yes, Tracy.
You're right.
I ain't got nothing to add to that. That is so true. And when you really start working in churches, and we're talking about all places of faith. They all work the same. Yes. You know, when you're in leadership or when you're a part of the back door, like in the green room, you get to see what truly goes on. And I've been in that place to where I've been fussed at or fussed out, and I got to get on that stage and minister unto the people. You talk about some hurt. And so what I'm saying, if we're going to do this, we got to start doing this stuff in love. We can't continue to do this stuff to where we're hateful and just plain mean and ugly. And you're trying to live what grandmama them lived. And you know you didn't like it then.
Oh.
He is raising up a new church. I'm talking about my faith. But I do feel like there is a church or a place of faith that really wants to touch and connect with people. Dr. Lentoria, you and I will be here all day. And we got to come back and do the rest of this talk. But don't leave. Okay. I got to get my brother up here. EJ. We about to talk about the family a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Did anything that we talked about, and I don't know if you got a chance to hear any of the conversation with Dr. Lentoria and myself, any of those things that we talked about as to how we operate in community and how we operate in our workplace, particularly the schoolhouse, that resonates with you as to how we act, how we treat the law?
You know what, brother? I'm gonna be honest with you, Dan. It was certain things that came up, but my mind won't even allow to remember it because she started really talking about some real.
Okay, I get it.
Stuff. And she said some very, very important stuff. And just to answer that question before you get into mine, I think that one of the biggest problems that we have in 2023 as it pertains to like faith and stuff like that is people's love for luxury as opposed to love for humanity. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. When
you dropping the mic before you even start. That right there.
When people are more attracted to success than they are service, that is what gets you where you are right now. It's a real thing, because now you're starting to go, you're going outside the manual. Now all of a sudden you're treating the manual as though it's a menu where a la carte is an option. It's not, man. It's in there for a reason. Everything is in there. We can get into that, brother, but we ain't gonna do that.
No. Seriously, like, I love what you're saying, and it's such a great perspective. And that's where I say we have to start having dialogue.
Yeah,
we have to start talking. But a lot of times in our cultures, there's this learned behavior when it comes to this is your place, this is your place, this is your place. There's a limitation on the conversation and what you can share, or what you feel you can share. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the family a little bit. And I think about me. I'm going to start out with me a little bit, and we're going to dive into some other things. But I think about me as a young preacher's kid. And who I was already dictated to me, in a sense, before I even knew who I was as an individual. I came to really resent that to an extent, because I was known as the preacher kid, Reverend Ross kids. And so I think about, even in that, I knew that I was the preacher's kid, but there were certain subjects, certain topics, certain ideas, certain things that we really never became honest with or talked about, because we had this illusion or this idea of what it means to be Reverend James Ross kids. And as you know, people always say the preacher kids are some of the worst kids, but I think those kids struggle a lot with identity. And I think I struggle with identity, because you're told who you are before you know anything about God, anything about yourself. So I don't know if you've ever had a similar experience to that, or want to illuminate that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is. And in all transparency, my mother is an ordained minister.
Okay.
She became, I grew up in the church, but she became ordained, I believe, when I was about 18 years old.
Okay.
But I think it's just a lot of pressure in general, because what happens is many people, there's a certain sector of the people at various churches that go to church more for who's on the pulpit as opposed to actually receiving the actual word. And so because of that, a lot of times we put preachers in like these demigod type, we view them as such, to the point that even their offspring should be viewed as such. And it's a lot of unnecessary pressure.
Oh, man.
They're thinking like, you know what I'm saying? Your name Danny, not Jesus.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? But it's a lot of pressure that, that's such and such son. He better be, and that's a lot.
It is a lot. And so I think there's a freedom to where connection and belonging is also knowing that you can be your authentic self. You can grow into this. I love the Clark sisters, and Dorinda Clark Cole, her daughter was on this reality show, and she said something that really connected to me. And they live a very holy life. But she said, the daughter said, when she was out there in the world, her mama never gave up on her. She never talked down to her. She never made her feel as though she was less than. And now today she supports her mom in ministry because of how mom executed love and care and kindness, and hey, you gonna get it right, and kept affirming her. And so those are the things that I find so amazing. So I do want to ask you this. We talked about unique habits, some traditions, and even terminology. Can you share an example from your own family that brings about joy and it strengthens bonds within your family?
Within my family, joys, I think is always adequate communication And one thing I recognize that I'm privileged.
Ooh.
Very much blessed. I recognize that because
that's good.
I was fortunate. I was very, very fortunate to be raised by two adults. And it wasn't just as a result of their chronological age. I was fortunate to be blessed to be raised by people that had emotional intelligence and knew that despite them not being able to necessarily work out together, my mom and dad, they always knew to keep a child in their place.
Oh,
so even when they had beefs and stuff like that, we weren't privy to it. It wasn't a good cop. It wasn't a bad. It wasn't none of that. I was very privileged, and so I realized that even with my siblings now, we have open communication when things aren't right or whatever. That's it's a joy to be able to do that because none of us ever go to bed, angry, and we're all over different parts of the country or whatever. But if there is ever any issue, it's always good. We know we've learned the importance of communication. That's really joyful. You wouldn't think that that's something you find joy in until you realize that everybody don't have it.
Everybody don't have it. Everybody. Yeah. I want to illuminate a little bit more about what you just talked about, like vulnerability within our families. And I think about when somebody dies is when you really find out the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the real truth. And it can be heart-wrenching. It can be hard. It can tear the family apart. But if we are in a place to where we're comfortable in having conversation, we should have those conversations before that person dies. But I have seen the harm of people finding out information that they weren't privy to before the person passes. You want to eliminate on that a little bit? Have you had a similar situation or can connect to that?
No, but I do realize that funeral attendants will tell you much more than you would ever want to know about a person.
That's true.
I'm very much aware of that. And where, numbers don't lie.
They don't lie.
And everybody isn't mad that so-and-so is no longer here.
You're talking.
No, I'm being honest. I'm telling you how this stuff
works.
You're
telling the truth.
And so, to go back to the original question of, how to more or less how to appreciate people while they're here. And I think part of that it goes back to that word communication. You got to have it. You got to have adequate communication. Communication is so very, very important. Open communication. Number one, your parents are human beings. Okay, they're not baby Jesus. Mama and daddy ain't nowhere in that Bible. I can assure you.
Right.
They may have been named after somebody in there, but trust me.
They ain't up in there.
I know, but the thing is, we look at parents a lot of times, or elders, almost as being perfect. And it's only because we meet them where they are. When you met your mom and dad, you may have met them, whether your mama may have been 20 or 30, that's still 20 years of life.
That's true.
That you had.
That's true.
Here's the thing. You don't know about them first 19.
Come on.
Hey, and she ain't gonna tell you.
Come on.
And she ain't gonna tell you.
Because she saved that.
And so the thing is, ensuring that, we understand the proper communication when you're rearing, whether it be your children, your grandchildren, whatever the case is, making sure that you give grace and understand that people are going to learn things along the way. And I think also the other thing is important. Adjustment is very, very important. We live in a day and age where I tell people old-fashioned is a drink. It's not a way to think in 2023. You're gonna get yourself in trouble. Growing up, in order to learn more about the world, we would have to go through a thing called an encyclopedia. And that would take we would literally have to have a library card where we would be able to rent it out and maybe look through it if you felt like reading. That's how you would learn more about the world, or maybe looking at one of those little toy globes or whatever you'd be able to do. No, now kids can learn anything and everything. They got access to almost 8 billion other personalities. So it's different. You have to be willing to adjust and understand that you got to go against everything that they're learning by the second on these doggone. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be willing to adjust. I think that that's an important thing for all people and families for connection and belonging. Adjust and understand.
I want to talk about this part where, in families, we don't well, I know culturally, for my particular family and what I've experienced, talking about real issues is difficult. Vulnerability, sharing your truth, sharing how you feel. I think even in parents sometimes being wrong and not admitting it, and they are dead dog wrong sometimes. How can we get families in communities into a place to where we feel okay with being vulnerable, being able to trust the relationship, being able to know that you're not going to get beat up? How do we build that type of foundation
of being able to be vulnerable? I think it's very, very important that a family, if you are a family, you have to embody that. And part of that is ensuring that you create a safe space for people to feel safe to be able to talk about something. And I think the person that may have something going on that in which they feel vulnerable about, they should be able to ask somebody within the family, of origin, hey, can I be vulnerable with you? Sometimes you need to ask that, because sometimes people, the people that you want to talk to, they may not be ready. The vulnerable person may not be ready, may be ready, but the person that is, they may not be ready to accept what's coming, and they may not be in position at that time. And that's a real reality. So being able to ask questions about it is important. But I think before you even seek anybody else's approval, you need to know within yourself, who you are, things along that line. And being able to do that means, taking the high road of accepting who it is that you are, but understanding that the high road is oftentimes a lonely road.
Wow, that's good.
You know what I mean? It involves that, but at least you're being honest with yourself. Anytime that you can't be honest with yourself and have those important dialogues or conversations, it's a form of self-sabotage.
Exactly.
And, I tell people all the time, a fish trying to walk on land ain't gonna last long. You got to be able to be true to who you are. Exactly. And then being able to talk to people and hope that they have the emotional and intellectual capacity to accept.
Yes. You
hope they do. But at the same point in time, when somebody is not able to do that, this is what I tell a lot of clients, and I want you to remember this, Danny. I tell clients, when you have something going on and you're looking for that assistance, you're looking for maybe sometimes that validation, or you're just looking for a safe space with family or whatnot. Sometimes we have family members that are what I like to call socially outdated, emotionally outdated. They haven't been able to update.
Socially, emotionally outdated.
They're outdated. So they haven't been able to update certain things. And they think so much about themselves that they don't even have the capacity to think about how the other person may feel. You have to be able to create, a safe space. But what I tell people a lot of times is that when you're talking, or when you're trying to be able to talk to people about certain things, and they're not receptive, say it's a family member, say it's your parents or whatever the case is, and they're not receptive to it. Even though it's tough, it's frustrating, I want you to understand that sometimes reframing it helps a whole lot, where instead of being so fixated on being disappointed, instead, you must look at what they have as a disability. So don't get caught in their disappointment. Instead, understand their disability, because they're not able to update themselves to be able to think about anybody except themselves and how they feel, not even taking time to have the empathy to understand what this person is humbly trying to come to them to talk about. It's really a disability. Anytime you can't understand, you refuse to understand, you just refuse to.
Exactly.
That's a disability all within itself. It's high functioning, but it's still a disability.
Oh, there's so much I want to add to that. I do want you to answer the question that was just up here. How did your early upbringing in St. Louis help you in your practice today? I think that's a really great question.
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. My parents, father being from South Central Los Angeles, mother being from the South Side of Chicago, they met, at school in Minnesota, raised their kids in St. Louis. But their upbringing is what helped my upbringing. Remember, what I'm saying? Success is traceable, but so is trouble. You know what I'm saying? Both are very much traceable. So what happened is I always give credit. I'm not one of these people about, oh, I got it from the mud. No, not really. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of fortune.
Right.
That went my way. You know what I mean? I wasn't raised in a third world country. So, you know, I kind of had I had some things working in my favor, but my parents always kept me humble. They always ensured that their children knew that the only thing that separates you from anybody else is really God's blessing. Don't get it twisted.
Come on.
Everything you didn't deserve, you don't deserve none of it. It's really just His grace. And you better understand that and always walk like that. So I was always taught you never look down on somebody unless you're there to pick them up. That was instilled in me very, very tough. And so those experiences being in a place like St. Louis, which is it's you know, that's the belly of America. It's tough when you see stuff like that, but you always remain humble.
You said something though, but you were taught how to create this connectedness, to create this belonging kind of way. Like if somebody is down, somebody is here or there, your parents gave you some type of modeling, it sounds like, to say, hey, we help them. We don't talk about them.
Oh man, I didn't understand it. I used to just think my parents were growing up, like they used to just love having people around. That's what I used to think. We used to always have people living with us and all that kind of stuff. I didn't realize it then, but that was my early education. So people that know me now on a personal level, they be like, man, EJ always looking out for people. But that's just how it's the way I was taught. You meet my dad's mama. My grandma, it's the same, you know what I'm saying? My auntie, it's kind of like just kind of how I was taught to be good to people. Because here's the thing. I did enough foolishness, Danny.
Come on.
And I know, you know what I'm saying? The one thing about life is ain't none of us gonna make it out alive. That's a fact. You can write a check.
That's a given.
You can cash that one in. And I'm just not, I done been through enough. Rent high, you know what I'm saying? It's hard enough just to get by. I ain't trying to get all the way up to the gates, Danny. And him tell me, hey, go over, you get back. I ain't got time.
Right. You ain't got time for that.
So let me, what I can get right, let me try to get that right, which is serving people and being just a decent.
EJ, you got so much good stuff. These good nuggets just coming out, falling from the sky tonight. Man, we got to get on here and talk and help.
Oh man, anytime, man. That's one thing about I'll talk all day.
You and me both. So let's do this. I want to bring you and Dr. Lentoria back on here to answer this final question. Dr. Lentoria.
Listen, I tear this whole living room up.
Come on.
EJ, you done took me to church from the pulpit to the back.
Yes, that's my boy there.
Spoke a whole word up in here. And I got my mother, I see her in the chat. You want to come on talking about be traced, and honey, your upbringing really define and reflect who you are.
Oh man, the foundation.
That's the foundation. Yeah. And the beauty about that foundation is if you don't like that foundation, as you are traveling and navigating and building who you are as a person, as an adult, don't forget them roots.
Don't forget that.
Oh man, you got to. And I'm not, I didn't grow up rich or nothing like that, but I do know that a cottage made of brick is stronger than a mansion made of straw.
That's
it. Come on.
You know what I'm saying? I understand that. It was firm.
I said, "Oh, I think I need to go trace our ancestry because we got the same message."
I want to get to this last question, and I want to hear from you both, and I want to kind of sum everything up. And I think this is a great place to do that. I think we talk about communication, and I talked to you earlier about what I feel communication, what sets up good communication is trust, respect, recognizing that you need to feel safe in the relationship to truly communicate. What are some of the strategies that you guys recommend when it comes to trying to set up a place to where we can openly communicate, we can have that dialogue that we need to have, and I don't have to worry about it coming up at those inopportune times or it's going to be used against me? How do we create a family structure or family system that represents safety, belonging, connectedness, and I feel safe enough to talk to the people in my family? How do we do that?
Just think, for me, it's authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only girl, have 3 brothers. Love my brothers to death. We can talk about any and everything
Mm-hmm.
about feelings and emotions setting us back and setting us apart. And that's why I talk about my brothers all the time because I have no sister.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that bicker in life because I didn't have it. But showing up as your authentic self, creating that space, that safe space to say, listen, this is a non-judgmental zone. And if I
Mm-hmm.
can't come to you and you can't come to me, why are we here? Why
Right.
is this even happening? In the workplace, again,
Mm-hmm.
that safe space. I'm gonna tell you, I don't want to be comfortable at home, uncomfortable at home or at work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's just me. I don't want anyone around me or in my space that feels
Mm-hmm.
if they have to walk on eggshells around me. So
Mm-hmm.
I freely tell my staff, hey, if there's a different way, let's talk about that. If you
Right.
disagree with X, Y, and Z, I'm not gonna chop your head off. Let's just have a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Family the same way. I would much rather you be upfront with me. And this is just
Mm-hmm.
be upfront, authentically yourself with me. You disagree with me because I dislike this because
Mm-hmm.
be the chance to fix it before you condemn me for something that I didn't even know you were condemning me for.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm about to call you Dr. EJ. I feel that in my spirit coming though. EJ,
one of these days I got to finish it.
hey, you and me both.
Well, come on, join the club.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say one of the things is expectation is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got to have a mindset. You got to have you got to think the right way. Because if you go in thinking the wrong way, whatever information that you're going to present is going to come out that way, and that energy will be felt. But I think also more importantly than that is you guys. It's okay to create. Ground rules is a term that some people use, but just kind of conditions on like, okay, let's talk about this, and ensuring that everybody is ready. Some people don't have the emotional maturity to have conversations despite
exactly
their, and you got to know that everybody, you can't talk, some people don't have that in their settings. They haven't matured enough yet for that. So you have to know who some people who you may want to talk to, unfortunately, Danny, they're not eligible for such dialogue, and you got to know that, brother.
You got to know it.
Failure to realize that will cause you a great deal of heartache and headache.
Oh man, there's a lot of things that you share are such are the ways that I run my practice as well as to some people have limitations, and you can't make somebody be something that they have never been, nor have they ever shown you that.
Yeah.
But we're so hungry for this person to see us the way that we want them to see us that we're willing to subject ourselves to a lot of harm, a lot of hurtfulness, because we need this particular person to see us in the way that we want them to see us. How about seeing yourself in the way you need to be seen, first of all, before we ask other people? I want to sum this up tonight, and I just want to say to you, audience, tonight, my guests, you guys are phenomenal. I mean, I couldn't ask for a greater panel tonight. You guys gave so many nuggets, so many insightful moments. I want to say to the audience tonight, I want you to keep cultivating relationship. I want you to keep cultivating that. Just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean somebody else doesn't need it. I want you to continue to recognize that there are people who need what you have. There are only some people who will be healed by what you give, but it's all about you being in the rightful place that you need to be when it comes to connection, when it comes to belonging, when it comes to inviting someone, when it comes to seeing people as for what they need. I want you to recognize there are people that are depending on you. There are people who need what you have. What I need for you to do, now you've been with me all week. I need you to go to that website, www.themessages.net, and I need you to burn that thing up and buy all the books. Don't just buy one for yourself. Buy 2 or 3. I always buy 2 or 3 books when I buy a purchase. Get a book, give it to somebody. It's exercise. It's a lot of reflection, a lot of different ideas in that book. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm out of time. I will see you next go round. Review these programs and see what you can find out of them. I will see you soon. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Have a great night.